parties are preparing for war over the next Supreme Court pick, and it could drive some huge changes in the U.S. Senate, while President Trump is just getting fired up.
As you know, Mexico, with the United States, has outnegotiated us and beat us to a pulp.
His next moves could bring back more jobs or crush U.S. exports in a global trade war. We'll break it down, and we'll explain Trump's take on Putin and his approach to the war on ISIS. This is Money, Power, and Politics. We'll start with Trump's meeting with the British Prime Minister, which turned once again to the president, ripping our relationship with Mexico, in effect calling America and its leaders, up until now, a bunch of fools.
They've made us look foolish. We have a trade deficit of $60 billion with Mexico. On top of that, the border is soft and weak, drugs are pouring in, and I'm not going to let that happen.
And so here we are in Trump's first week. He ordered a wall, cracked down on illegal immigrants, voided a trade deal in the Pacific, floated a 20% tax on Mexican imports, blocked a rate cut on mortgages, ordered a 90-day federal hiring freeze, started the dismantling of Obamacare, advanced pipeline projects, mocked his protesters, clashed with facts, rolled out alternative facts, and revved up his base and his opponents. And with all of this, his approval rating is in the tank in some polls. For example, Quinnipiac now puts his approval rating at 36%, yet others, like Rasmussen, have him in the mid to high 50s, so we seem to be all over the map here. We have seen how polls swing, though, and of course can't always be trusted, as we saw last year. As far as what's next, there is a very good chance that controversy will continue to swirl for some time, and the nation will continue to be sharply divided, but Trump may not mind that much because it may not stop him from shaking things up. Our pollster Matt Towery predicted the very same thing. In fact, Matt stopped by a little earlier and I asked him what Trump is thinking.
This is what I think their thinking is. They have very low opinion ratings compared to other presidents, but they have a very intense following. And right now, that intense following is also the following that the Senate and the House has to bow to do what he wants. And as long as Trump can continue to fight the media and fight facts that he thinks are wrong, and the majority or the supermajority of his supporters support it, then that forces the Republican members of the Senate to go ahead and confirm his nominees. I mean, we saw Senator Rubio now. He's in favor of the nominee for Secretary of State, he was giving real trouble to just a week ago. I'm not saying that that's the reason that Marco Rubio is doing it, but he realizes, and I think they all realize, that Trump has a very solid hold over the group that elected him, and that's the group that will have to vote on their reelection down the road.
Meanwhile, Trump has said he wants us to work together with Russia and Vladimir Putin, even though leaders in his own party say Putin's a war criminal who does not have our best interests at heart here. Trump and Putin, by the way, have already coordinated and plan to talk much more beyond this. And with that, we want to show you the options and the possible risks and benefits of dealing with Russia in the war on terror.
We are fighting sneaky rats right now that are sick and demented, and we're going to win.
President Trump had a different take on ISIS from the start. Just compare his approach to some of his rivals.
We need a ground force.
Local people and nations.
We should have a no-fly zone.
I would bomb the out of them.
But the bottom line is there are no easy answers and no good options. For example, a no-fly zone would not stop ISIS because ISIS does not have planes. And sending in more ground troops would pit America versus ISIS on their home turf in Sunni territory where a lot of people have sympathized with ISIS. That's a prescription for Vietnam all over again or Iraq before Petraeus. But even General Petraeus says U.S. ground troops would be a bad idea. As for creating safe zones, they'd be hard to keep safe in a war zone where a mass murdering dictator is duking it out with ISIS and al-Qaeda. And as for supporting the Free Syrian Army, that may have worked years ago, but now there's not much left, and most of the rebels today, like al-Nusra, are linked with al-Qaeda.
ISIS needs to be defeated by a ground force that's made up primarily of Sunni Arabs, because these are Sunni Arab territories that they've taken hold of.
Well, Senator Rubio is right about that, but remember, Sunni Arabs let ISIS take over because they saw it as a better alternative to the Shia-led persecution that they had faced. If they drive out ISIS, many fear a return to that persecution or a mass murdering dictator in Syria who gassed his own people. Former President Obama struggled with all of this and took heat from Republicans and Democrats for years.
I don't think the approach is sufficient to the job. This has gone on too long now, and it has not gotten better. It's gotten worse.
We have all along underestimated ISIS.
This is not a time to just kind of sit back and hope that somehow this enemy will go away.
America's policy in Syria and the war on terror and who to attack wavered under Obama.
That's a red line for us.
I didn't set a red line.
And Russia's Vladimir Putin stepped in to protect his mass-murdering friend in Syria and maybe shift the balance of power in his favor along the way. Putin knows he could potentially unite Syria, Iran, and maybe Iraq under his wing and maybe destabilize or diminish the Saudis, ultimately giving Russia more power in the global flow of oil. We've been playing what Sean Connery in Hunt for Red October once called a dangerous game with Russia. And while Putin worked the chessboard, Republicans claimed Obama was getting played.
Once more, play our dangerous game.
And so now President Trump, in a sharp departure from other Republican leaders, wants us to warm up to Putin and trust him to help us kill ISIS, even though our own government assessments show Putin attacked the moderate rebels who were fighting ISIS, again to protect Syria's dictator Bashar al-Assad. And now it's the Democrats who say Trump is getting played by Putin in his attempt to ramp up the war on ISIS.
They're sneaky, dirty rats, and they blow people up in a shopping center, and they blow people up in a church. These are bad people.
Beyond working with Putin, Trump's other options include boosting American ground troops and advisors, and sending in more support to our partners in the war like the Kurds, and sending in more military equipment to keep ISIS on the run.
When you're fighting Germany and they had their uniforms, and Japan and they had their uniforms, we have evil that lurks around the corner without the uniforms. Ours is harder.
And among the other ideas we just walked through, Trump is also now looking at the concept, yes, of safe zones all throughout Syria that would be backed up by a no-fly zone that would try to protect civilians from airstrikes intended to take out ISIS and not them. The president is also cutting off, of course, the flow of refugees from Syria and other countries in that region. McQuady Egeter is going to show you why refugees who are already here in the U.S. are worried about that.
Hi, baby. You are cold?
Behind the smile of South Sudanese refugee Karak Miakal.
It was about my life. I saw death by my eyes.
Refugees' rights are human rights.
Passion, questions, and fear shine through.
And I thought America will be great again when allowing refugees to come in.
Without refugees, there is no great America.
Hopeful that others just like her will still be welcomed into the United States.
I flee my country. I am a human rights activist.
2 years ago, Miakal says she was captured and tortured by the Sudanese government.
I was captured during my campaign about gender-based violence in one of the refugees camps.
Forced to flee, she was brought here to Colorado, but had to leave her 6 young children behind.
I was worried, not only for my children, it's for many, many children, many remarkable refugees.
Yesterday, she was told her kids were going to be allowed visas to join her here in Denver. That decision now uncertain because of executive orders expected to be signed by President Trump this week, dramatically restricting refugees from a number of countries like Syria, Iraq, and Sudan.
We are allowing hatred to happen.
Miakal is just one of many stories.
Give us a heart large enough to fight.
Now fearing what their future in America holds.
Oh, refugees are welcome here.
There's tons of fear, and not just them. We're all scared of what's in front of us.
Oh, how I love thee as my neighbor.
Now, coming up, we're going to put Trump's first week in context and show you why the Republican establishment, which he ran against, will not get in his way. Funny how things change in the course of a week. Remember how Marco Rubio grilled Rex Tillerson, said it'd be a check to either Clinton or Trump in the White House, and you got the feeling that he was taking that to heart when he was taking down Tillerson.
Mr. Tillerson, you've engaged in significant business activities in Russia. Mr. Tillerson, do you believe that Vladimir Putin and his cronies are responsible for ordering the murder of countless dissidents, journalists, and political opponents?
I do not have sufficient information to make that claim.
Are you aware that people who oppose Vladimir Putin wind up dead all over the world, poisoned, shot in the back of the head. And do you think that was coincidental, or do you think that it is quite possible, or likely, as I believe?
Yeah, picked up from there. But then Rubio became the swing vote that cleared the path for Tillerson's confirmation. So Rubio and the Republican establishment came around once again for Donald Trump. And this fits a pattern that started in the Republican War of 2016. Let's go with Chapter 2.
It's time now for Trail Tales.
General Rubio surrendered on March 15th in the Battle of Florida. The remnants of his battered army lay scattered in the murky sawgrass of Weston.
A lawyer with his briefcase can steal more than 100 men with guns. I don't know how that's relevant to this, but I thought it was a really good quote.
General Trump's conquest of the South was complete and is celebrated with a mocking blow to his rival's wife.
Donald, you're a sniveling coward, and leave Heidi the hell alone.
The resistance regrouped in their northern stronghold of Wisconsin and blasted the Trumpians as they crossed the border.
Establishment, preachers, and talk show hosts unite. For today and forever, our battle cry is Never Trump! Never Trump! Never Trump!
Never Trump!
Trump's loss in Wisconsin gave the resistance false hope. They charged into Gettysburg and never came home.
General Trump destroyed the rival forces from Pennsylvania to New York. It was the turning point of the war. But the shell-shocked general from Texas refused to surrender.
Only one campaign has repeatedly beaten Donald Trump, and only one campaign can and will beat Donald Trump.
General Cruz was an odd choice to lead the resistance. He was an outcast in his own chamber. In earlier days, his fellow senators might have beaten him with a cane.
But to the Never Trump movement, he was their last hope. The war shifted west to a final battle on the cornfields of Indiana.
Now that I've endorsed Cruz, what else can go wrong? It's time for the right to rise. Colonel John Ellis Bush, P.S., please clap.
Once again this week, the Republican establishment submitted to Trump yet again, and yet again he used Twitter in ways a president never has before. And we should have seen that coming as well, based on how it all played out in Chapter 3.
To the Republican elite, one man was poisoned, the other more like a bullet to the head.
Again, it's like being shot or poisoned. What does it really matter?
But as the war dragged on and General Trump battered the resistance, the Republican elite decided to drink the poison.
What turns you on about Cruz?
That he's not Trump. You might find an antidote to poisoning. I don't know, but maybe there's time.
Time was running out as General Trump conquered states to the north and south. The wall that pitted brother against brother was winding down. General Trump took over the Twitter lines and used it to feed his war machine.
Prior to the Great Republican War, Twitter was a novelty. Trump used it as a great weapon of war.
To the Republican elite, he was a clown or an angry old crank.
Just angry all the time.
Folks, Donald Trump is not a serious person. This is a carnival act.
But the brash general's colorful observations captivated a people tired of politics as usual.
Trump has never seen a thin person drinking Diet Coke?
He must be smart, because he says his IQ is the highest. For he extends best wishes to all, even the haters and losers.
His vast communication network overwhelmed the establishment that was still using flip phones from a bygone era. He used it to transport his agenda and activate his troops on a moment's notice to repel the resistance.
I heard Lion Ted was going to be here.
Lion.
Once again, Lion Ted!
General Cruz was overwhelmed.
America is a better country
without you.
Thank you for those kind sentiments.
Trump's army ambushed his regiment and taunted him by calling him a fish monster.
You look like a fish monster, and you're a terrible person!
Surrounded by hecklers, Cruz's regiment braced for a final stand in Indiana. General Trump set course for Appomattox Courthouse and prepared his terms for surrender.
I hope it doesn't involve violence, and I don't think it will. But I will say this. It's a rigged system. It's a crooked system.
Oh, how I wish our future leader would stop calling our own system rigged and crooked. I haven't slept in a year. General Reince Priebus.
Okay, here we go. Coming up, the president said he may send in the feds to clean up what he calls the carnage in Chicago. So where does Chicago rank when it comes to violent crime? We have some numbers that may surprise you when we come back. Okay, what a week. Let's go ahead and send it over to Mike Flannery, who takes a closer look at what President Trump calls the carnage in Chicago.
We can talk to him about what's needed. Let him send resources. Let's pass some of the legislation, like for national trafficking bills, so guns aren't floating here from Vice President Pence's Indiana or Speaker Ryan's Wisconsin.
Actually, Indianapolis, the city where Mike Pence lived until this month, set an all-time record high for murder in 2016. Indy and Milwaukee, Wisconsin, near Paul Ryan's district, both ranked among America's 10 most dangerous cities, with more violence per capita than Chicago.
Look at Chicago. What's going on in Chicago? I said the other day, what the hell is going on?
When a man shouted Democrats, Trump and the congressional audience erupted. At the very moment the president was asking what's going on, by coincidence, the director of the University of Chicago's crime lab was offering partial answers at a City Club luncheon. Jens Ludwig put up a slide showing the rate of non-gun homicide here in gray is about the same as in L.A., Houston, or Philadelphia. The shocking difference, shown in red, gun homicide. Another surprise, 60% more of the shooters here are teenagers than in other big cities. With teens and 20-somethings in mind, Congresswoman Kelly tweeted, "Nothing stops a bullet like an opportunity. Let's pass a jobs bill, spur growth," telling the president, "Come to my district and I'll show you." Donald Trump is certainly unpredictable enough, so who knows? I'm political editor Mike Flannery.
And with that in mind, we will roll out our predictions for next week and the Supreme Court pick when we come back. Big story next week. Prediction will be President Trump's pick for the U.S. Supreme Court conservative justice. Of course, the Democrats will not like. With that, there will be a big debate with President Trump leading the way over whether or not there should be a nuclear option in which Republicans force a majority vote instead of a filibuster. Of course, we will follow it all through next week. We'll see you tomorrow night.